All right, let's demystify hit factor. So, if you're anything like most of us, you came into the sport, you were told that hit factor is points per second, and that was pretty much the end of it. Not too much more after that. So, we're going to briefly talk about what hit factor is, how you calculate it, and then we're going to get into the weeds a little bit and talk about hit factor math and how you apply that to your stage planning so you can make more educated decisions on a course of fire. So, first of all, what is hit factor? Hit factor is points per second. It is your total points accumulated divided by your raw time. So, for example, if there is a stage with 120 available points and you shoot 90% of those available points, you've collected 108 points. There's 120 available. You dropped 10%, meaning you dropped 12 points. 120 minus 12 gives you 108. So I've collected 108 points on that stage. And for easy math, let's say I ran it in 10 seconds flat. I'm going to take that 108 points accumulated divided by my raw time of 10 seconds to give me a hit factor of 10.8. That's all hit factor is its points divided by time. So let's talk about hit factor math. I'm going to go over two methods here and give you the one I prefer first, and then I'll go over an alternate method at the end. So for me, I like to know exactly what every single point down is going to cost me. That way, during my stage walkthrough, I can do some on-the-fly math and address a particular friction point or contingency and know exactly what the risk there is. So the way you do that is you take the hit factor of a stage and you just invert it. So you express the hit factor as a fraction, meaning if I have a 10 hit factor stage, I'm going to express that as a fraction by taking that whole number and putting it over 1. So 10 hit factor is 10 over 1. I'm going to invert that to give me 1 over 10. Now I know every single point down is going to cost me 1/10 of a second or 0.1 seconds. So what do I do with that information? Let's say during my stage walkthrough, I identify a friction point, maybe a tight nose shoot, and I want to know whether or not it's worth it to spend some more time on a more deliberate aiming scheme and collect two alphas, or if I just hold the alpha Charlie perf and take two potential Charlies, if there's not a whole lot of alpha exposed. So now you can mathematically justify your decision instead of just winging it and taking a guess. So in this scenario of a 10 hit factor stage, I know every single point down is 0.1 seconds, which means every Charlie, being 2 points down, is going to cost me 0.2 seconds. If I shoot two Charlies on that no shoot, that's going to cost me 0.4 seconds in time. If I think I can apply the appropriate aiming scheme and deliver two alphas on that target in under 0.4 seconds, it's worth it for me to collect the alphas. If I think I'm going to spend longer than that applying a more deliberate aiming scheme, maybe it's worth it to take two Charlies. Okay, so that's just one example. You can apply this to any friction point or contingency you come across. We're going to talk about the other method, and that is to take the points down for a given hit or penalty and dividing it by the estimated hit factor of a stage. So let's break that down. We're going to use a mic for this example. A mic is a 15-point penalty. So if that mic is worth 15 points down, I'm going to take it and divide it by the estimated hit factor of the stage. If the hit factor of the stage is 3, I know that 15-point penalty divided by a 3 hit factor gives me 5. That mic was worth 5 seconds. Okay, now if I take that same mic and apply it to my 10 hit factor stage, 15-point penalty divided by 10 hit factor is only 1.5. So that mic was worth 1.5 seconds. So how do I use that? Let's say there's a tough swinger on a stage. Maybe it's a partial. I want to know if it's worth it to wait for a second exposure if maybe I call a mic on that first pass. So let's say first pass, I call an alpha mic. Maybe I threw one in the hardcover. It's got a long dwell time on the back end. So do I wait for it or do I leave the position and just accept the mic? In the example of this 10 hit factor stage, I know that that mic was worth 1.5 seconds. So if I think that I can wait for a second exposure and make up that mic with an alpha, because remember, this math is the disparity between a mic and an alpha, then it's worth waiting on a second pass. If I don't think I can wait on a second exposure, apply the appropriate aiming scheme, and make up that mic with an alpha, then it's probably worth it just to leave the position and accept that mic. So hopefully going forward, this helps you in your stage walkthroughs. As a general rule of thumb, the higher the hit factor, the more raw time matters. The lower the hit factor, the more points accumulation matters. So For example, on a 4 hit factor stage, I cannot physically find enough raw time gains to justify excessive points down, right? On a 4 hit factor stage, every single point down is worth a quarter of a second, meaning every Charlie is worth half a second. I can't find enough time to make up excessive points down. On maybe a 15 hit factor stage, every point down is only 0.067 seconds. So every Charlie is only worth 0.12, 0.13 seconds. In that instance, maybe I'll be a little more aggressive and take some more risk. Maybe take something on the move I wouldn't normally take on the move in search of potential raw time gains. So again, depending on your skill level in the sport and where you're at right now, this may not be something you want to apply any mental bandwidth to. If you have a bunch of other low-hanging fruit to address first, just put this in your back pocket and save it for later. If you're of a skill level where you think you can utilize this in your next local match, take it to a walkthrough and start identifying those friction points and doing that math. That way you can make a little more educated decisions on what you choose to do on your course of fire. So again, if the first few times this might feel like it's mentally taxing, after you do it every single walkthrough, this will start to become second nature. You won't really have to apply any conscious thought to this. It's just going to be a part of your stage planning process. So hopefully that helped. Hopefully that was beneficial to somebody. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know, and I'll see you next time.